today I'm going to look at Shainae, the Harvest Wars from Metagaming. It's their microgame number 2 from 1977. Heard a lot of good things about it. Gonna check it out. It comes in it's one of their small, pocket games. Like 7 inches by 4. First of all, it has a couple different versions. This is the first version, and then there's the second version, which has, I'd say, more color contrast. Personally, I like this one. As you'll see, the colors are kind of subtle, but I think they work really well. I think the second version has like a greener board and reddish components. Give more contrast, but like I said, I kind of like the subtle colors of this one. Unique art. Very well done. On a far planet, summer is ending. It is the time of harvest, and across the fields pour the hymenopters, intelligent insects with only one goal: more food for the hive. Shainae is a tactical abstract from Metagaming's Hymenoptera game system. It simulates a battle between 2 hive cities struggling for greater shares of food, the harvest, or the bodies of the enemy. Workers, flyers, basics, and different types of warriors they command make a detailed yet easy to learn game in a setting that may really exist somewhere. And it's interesting, and shout out to the Facebook group Sci Fi War Games, because I was curious about the Hymenoptera game system, but apparently it wasn't completely realized. Great concept, but it never completely came to fruition. Game design by Howard Thompson, edited interestingly by Steve Jackson, illustrations by Paul Shainae. And they also attribute their philosophical inspiration and reading enjoyment that inspired this from Jack Vance's The Dragon Masters and The Last Cast Hellstrom's Hive by Frank Herbert. Although, brief background, the background is tied in throughout the game because different characters are defined from this background. Beneath a cool gray morning mist, the fields have reddened gray and wait for fall. But as dawn's yellow glint pierces the fog, the early calm is broken by chitinous rustling. Moving through the fields in gleaming rivers, their carapaces sparkling with dew, come 2 deadly harvest parties. Mandibles click as they sight each other, then claws crush and spikes pierce armor. The warriors destroy each other while the workers scramble. Some of the counters, there's 112, and a standard 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. And they come on, they're not punch out per se, but they're like cut in one direction. And they're like a pretty thin cardstock. And that might seem like that's not ideal, but it actually works out okay because if and when you cut them, you can just kind of cut it perpendicular and they come out clean with clean edges and everything. And also for me, I didn't want to cut unnecessarily the counters. I like to keep them intact if I can, so what I did is I copied it, and they copied well, and I just basically copied it on some simple cardstock and cut out the copy, and then I'm good to go. So it worked out pretty well. So kind of plus and minuses of that, I guess. And neat part about the game too is, of course, the great illustrations by Paul Shainae. Apologize if I don't pronounce that properly. So there's different unit types. There's a couple that aren't combat, and all the rest are. So the first, there's the image, and there's 2 different hives that seem to be the same. And there's the indicator of what type, which would be B for basic, GT for Gantua, LR for lowrider, W for worker, PL for plunge, FX, PX. And the images here are great. There's a basic worker, and the combat units are both, I mean, each of their functions describe their rules. And there's the termagant. Again, it provides a lot of great background having this art to go with. Ganchua, low render, worker, plunge, and flanks. So then the counters, you have your basic and your workers. The dots on all the counters indicate how many units are there, like 1 dot for 1, 3 for 3, for instance. The B, W, etc. are the indicators. Upper left, you have combat strength, and then right is the movement allowance. And for combat units, you have a disrupted and you have a undisrupted and disrupted. So, for instance, for the flanks with 3, it'd be 9 undisrupted, 6 disrupted, and then movement to 4. If there's a C, it indicates it can charge. So, for instance, the flanks and Ganchua can charge. Then the other indicators down here on the combat units, the basic and worker don't have this, but the item here, like T, for instance, in R. So there's R, H, T, S, and F. R is renders. H is hackers. T is thrusters. S is smashers. And flyers are F. And we'll discuss what that means in the rules. Also in the movement, some have an M here, which means that movement is in megahexes. And workers are a little bit different because they only have defensive strength. Hence they have the D shown there. Can attack, no zone of control, and they're the only ones that can pick up the harvest chits. It only represents 1 unit. Defensive strength of 1, movement allowance of 4. Basic units are treated as combat units, but their main purpose is to provide command control. And these smaller counters up here are the harvest chits. They have either a number and a letter, or just a letter. Those are the letters and numbers correspond to 7-lettered megahexes in the center of the map. They're placed to the game before the game according to the scenario. The harvest chits without numbers are used only with the advanced rules and are placed on the map to represent food value of dead units. And then the map is this like lightish green with some kind of bluish green indicators. I think it works okay with the contrast of the units to the color, so I think that works alright. So it contains 4 types of terrain. These are, which would be plain hexes, river hexes, rough terrain hexes, which include the forest hexes shown here, and the slope hexes, dark wavy lines. So in plain hexes, all ground units enter at cost of 1 movement point. River hexes, Ganchuas enter at a cost of 1 movement point. Other units enter at a cost of 2 movement points. So for both the rough terrain, forest hexes, and slope hexes, the same effect of movement. Low renders enter at a cost of 1 movement point. Other units enter at a cost of 2 movement points. Forest hexes have the combat strength of air units attacking ground units. Then the mega hexes are the heavy outline groups of 19, like for instance here. Mega hexes control harvest points, food points for dead units, and air unit movement. And of course each of the hexes is numbered for easy identification. Then for there's 2 players, so each side has a combat results table. And it's not a pretty small map, it's 8 by 14. And it's like a thickish paper. Setup for play, harvest chit placement. Harvest chits are placed in the lettered hexes in the center of the map. Each scenario specifies which harvest chits can be used. First move, each player rolls a die. The high roller chooses first move or the end map. Start from, second chooses the other. Learning scenario, harvest chits A, C, and F are used. Each player takes 3 Gensha units, 3 flanks units, 3 termagant units, 3 low render, and 6 workers. No advanced rules are used. When there's a player, workers exit the side of the map with at least 2 of the harvest chits. Basic scenario, harvest chits A, B, C, D, and F, and G are used. Each player selects a force of warriors, totaling 48 points in combat strength. Each player also gets 6 workers. No advanced rules are used. The winner is the player's workers exit his side of the map with at least 4 of the harvest chits. Small scenario, harvest chits A, C, and F are used. Each player selects 48 combat strength points of warriors and basics. Each player gets 6 workers. No more than 8 combat strength points of plunge units may be used. Use all advanced rules. Intermediate scenario, harvest chits A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G are used. Each player selects 60 combat strength points, warriors and basics. Each player also gets 6 workers. No more than 12 combat strength points of plunge units may be used. Use all advanced rules. Advanced scenario, harvest chits A, B, C, D, E, F, and G are used. Each player selects 78 combat strength points of warriors and basics. No more than 16 combat strength points of plunge units may be used. Use all advanced rules. And then the all unit scenario, harvest chits A, B, C, D, E, F, and G are used. Each player takes all the units of his color. Objectives and endgame, basic victory conditions. Player who moves the most harvest chits off his or her end of the map wins. The advanced victory conditions. Victory points are computed as follows. Harvest chits. Each harvest chit counts as its face value, if any, plus 1 for each dead unit added to it. Lost units. 2 points are subtracted from a player's score for each unit, basic worker or warrior, that player loses. Then the basic endgame ends when all harvest chits have been moved off the map. Advanced endgame ends when all harvest chits specified in the beginning setup have been moved off the map. Players compute victory points at the time, ignoring all units and other harvest chits left in the map. Then the alternate advanced endgame. The first off endgame rule can be used instead. This rule lets the game continue until all of one player's units have left the map. The player whose units are still in the map then credits his victory point total with all harvest chits left in the map. Then the sequence of game events. Turns alternate between players. Each player moves his or her units and resolves combat caused by these movements in the following sequence. Move ground air units. Turn all disrupted units right side up. They are now undisrupted. Then resolve all combats as follows. Announce which units are attacking which enemies, whether charge attacks are being made, and what the odds are for each attack. Roll a die for each combat and apply the results. Remove destroyed counters. Replace affected counters with smaller ones where not all units were lost. The defending player retreats all the attacking units that rolled an AR result. The attacker retreats all defending units that received a DR result. Each player may then advance or change facing on any of his or her ground units which eliminated or forced retreat of enemy ground units. If the advanced victory conditions are being used, record the number of units lost by each side and add the units lost to the values of the nearest harvest chit in the megahexes, starting new harvest chits as necessary. Ground movement. Moving onto the map, all units are assumed to start in a non-existent hex next to the short edge of the map. They move into the map by paying the normal entry cost. Movement allowances cost a certain number of movement points to enter each hex. Counter never has to move at all and never has to use all its movement points. Then the terrain effects are as stated in the map discussion. Combined terrain effects, it never costs more than 2 to enter a hex on a kind of terrain. If a hex contains, for instance, both river and rough terrain, all types will pay 2 to enter it, but not more than 2, unless there's an enemy zone of control issue. Zones of control, each ground unit except workers exerts zone of control in 6 adjacent hexes. It costs 1 extra movement point to enter each hex in an enemy zone of control. Stacking, only 3 ground units may stack in any hex. Each black dot on the counter represents 1 unit. Warrior stacking, different types of warrior units may never be placed in the same hex. Basics and workers may stack with any units, but ganchas may stack only with ganchas, flanks with flanks, etc. Facing, each ground unit must be faced towards one of the 6 sides of the hex. If this is moved, the top of the counter is considered to be the direction in which the unit is facing. So for instance, in this case, the top would be the facing direction. Leaving the map, units may leave the map only at the end in which they entered. So for instance, here, or where you enter or leave. No combat unit may re-enter the map once it's left. Workers may move back and forth off the edge of the map, paying 1 movement point to leave and the appropriate cost for the hex they re-enter. Worker movement, special rules for the worker counters include harvest chits. The workers are the only units that can pick up and carry harvest chits. The worker just moves into the hex containing the chit. Thereafter, the chit moves to the worker. No worker may carry more than 30 food points. Each worker unit may carry only 1 chit at a time. If a worker carrying a chit is killed, the chit remains in that hex until it's picked up by another worker. If 2 workers are carrying a chit and one's killed, the other keeps carrying it. A worker has no zone of control. A worker may never enter hex in an enemy zone of control unless the friendly combat unit is in the hex or is moving with the worker. Replacement of workers. Whenever a worker unit is killed, it is, in the advanced rules, added to the food value of the nearest harvest chit and counted against its owner, just like any other unit. However, in the next turn, its owner may start a new worker unit from his or her side of the map. Thus, each hive has an unlimited number of workers, but only 6 are seen on the map at any one time. Movement through enemy units. Ground units may never move onto or through enemy ground units, exception overrun attacks. Air units may pass over enemy ground units. Ground combat. Ground combat is resolved after movement. If air units are being used, their combat is figured in with that of the ground units. Stacks. Each stack of counters attacks and defends as a unit. A stack attacks at the combat strength of all warriors and basics in the stack, plus any combat adds for facing or type of warrior attacked. A stack defends at the combat strength of all warriors in the stack, plus 1 for each basic and or worker. Making attacks. The attacker must attack all adjacent enemy units in front of the units. Front is determined by the facing of the units. So front, again, for instance, this is facing to this hex. The front would be the 3 hexes, including the center one it's facing, and then the rear would be the 3 ones in the back of it. So in this example, it's facing here, so front is here, and rear is back. All units in a stack have the same facing. A ground unit may attack only units in front of it. Combining attack, 2 more stacks may attack 1 more enemy stack, as long as the stack being attacked is in front of both attackers. 1 stack may attack 2 or even 3 stacks, as long as all stacks attacked are in front of it. Remember, any enemy stacked in front of one of your units afterward must be attacked somehow. Combat adds. There are 3 ways in which an attacking stack may increase its strength for an attack: by attacking from the rear, by attacking the type of unit against which it fights best, or in the advanced game by making a charge attack. When a stack attacks from one of the enemy's 3 rear hexes, it gets 1 additional point of combat strength for each unit in the stack. Class adds. Each type of warrior unit has one other type of against which it fights exceptionally well. These are shown under class adds in the combat results table and shown below. Smashers are best against hackers. Hackers are best against renders. Renders best against thrusters. Thrusters best against smashers. So they get adds when they attack those. When the warriors in the defending stack are the type of the attacking warriors are best against, each attacking unit gets 1 additional point. Combat adds and combined attacks. If one stack is attacking 2 or more stacks, it gets no class adds unless all the warriors attacked are the type it is best against. If 2 or more stacks are attacking 1 stack, the warriors attacking warriors in the right type can get class edits, but the others don't. The same holds true for attacks from the rear, except that only ground units are considered. Adds for each attacking stack are computed separately, and the totals combined to give the total attack strength for each attack. Enemy units and rear hexes. The unit cannot attack enemy units behind it. However, any stack which begins an attack phase with an undisrupted enemy warrior unit behind it will lose one extra unit after combat, unless all the enemy units behind it are attacked during that turn. Resolving combat. The attacker rolls one die and consults the combat results table. Odds calculation. Total combat strength of the attacking stack. Add any class adds and adds for attacking from the rear. Add all these to get the total attack strength. Total the combat strength of the defending stacks and add them together. Now figure the ratio of the attackers to the defender's strength. The combat results table shows the results for that combat. Combat losses. Lost units are indicated by the notation A number, D number. For instance, A2 means the attacker loses 2 units. D3 means the defender loses 3 units. The owning player always selects which units are to be lost from among those involved in combat. If the CRT shows that more units are lost than the player actually had, no other units are lost. If the loss means that a counter representing a number of units must be replaced by a counter representing fewer units, this is done immediately. Disruption. Disrupted counters become confused and ineffective. Disruption is indicated by AD, attacker disrupted, or DD, defender disrupted, on the combat results table. Disrupted units may move only one hex in the next movement phase, may never move into a hex in an enemy zone of control. Attack and defend at the disrupted combat strength, the second number in the upper left-hand corner, become undisrupted at the end of their next movement phase and may attack, but never charge attack at that time. An AD result means all attacking units in the combat are disrupted. A DD means that all units defending the combat are disrupted. Disrupted counters may be flipped over so players can keep track of their status. Which units may be disrupted? The 4 types of ground warrior units are the only ones subject to disruption. Flyers, basics, and workers never suffer disruption. When the CRT indicates disruption for flyers and for a stack composed wholly of basics and or workers, they retreat. Basics and workers in attack with disrupt warriors stay with the stack, but are not disrupted. The stack does not retreat. Retreat. Combat results table indicates retreat by ARDR. AR means all attacking units in the combat retreat. DR means all defending units in that combat must retreat. Units forced to retreat are moved 1 hex in any direction by the enemy player. Stacks may not be split up in retreat. If a stack of units is completely surrounded by enemy units, friendly units with which it cannot stack, or on the map edge, it loses 1 unit instead of retreating. When units are forced to retreat, the enemy player may move any of his ground units in that combat into the hex formerly occupied by the defender and change facing on any of his other units which are involved in the combat. Overrun attacks. When the attack strength in a given attack is 6 or more times greater than defense strength, that is when combat odds are 6 to 1 or better, the attack may be an overrun. The defenders are automatically eliminated during the movement phase. The attackers may proceed through the hex movement formerly occupied by the overrun defenders at a cost of 2 movement points, plus terrain effects if any. They suffer no losses and may make a regular attack at the end of their movement. That's the basic rules, and then the advanced rules. Air movement in combat. The only air unit provided is the plunge. It is a warrior unit that can enter into ground combat or fight enemy air units. Air unit movement. Air units move at the same time as ground units. Their movement is computed in megahexes. Each plunge unit may move 2 megahexes per turn. Air units are considered present in every hex of the megahex they occupy. They may be placed anywhere in a megahex and may attack ground units in any hex of that megahex. Terrain does not affect air movement. Air unit stacking. There is no limited number of units that may occupy 1 megahex. Air unit combat. Air units use the same combat system and values as ground units, as well as the same combat results table. Unit facing class ed rules do not apply to air units. Air units are never disrupted. The CRT indicates disruption, they retreat instead. Air units which retreat are moved 1 megahex in any direction by the enemy player. Air units may not advance after combat. Dead air units count into harvest chits and count against their owner's victory points, like all other units. Compulsory air combat. Air units must attack enemy air units in any megahex they enter with at least equal strength. Excess air units not committed to combat with enemy air units may attack enemy ground units anywhere in the megahex. If a player moves a number of air units into megahex smaller than the number of enemy air units in the megahex, all entering air units must attack those enemy air units. Air-ground combat. Ground units may never attack air units. Air units may always attack ground units, subject to the compulsory air combat rule, in the same megahex. When air units attack a given stack, they must include in that attack any enemy units in the hexes adjacent to that stack unless some other unit is attacking those adjacent units. Enemy units in hexes adjacent to adjacent hexes and so on do not have to be attacked. Charge attacks. Kensha and flanks units may make charge attacks. The owning player has the option to declare a charge attack during the movement phase. Rules governing charge attacks are: movement bonus. Unit which charges gets 2 extra movement points. It does not have to use all its movement allowance to make a charge attack, but must attack at the end of the movement in order to get the charge movement bonus. Attack strength bonus. Unit which makes a charge attack has its strength doubled before adds for the attack. Results. A unit which made a charge attack undergoes all combat results normally. Disruption after charge. Units which make a charge attack become disrupted after combat results are applied and advance after combat, if any takes place. Charging after disruption forbidden. A unit which began its movement phase disrupted may not make a charge attack during the attack phase. And then command control. This rule simulates the telepathic command ability of the basic units. Although the basics are not fighters, they are needed to control the warriors. Units are in command control during a move if one of their basics is in the megahex value where they begin that move. Ground warrior units require control. Flyers, workers, and basics do not. Effects of loss of command control. Any ground worker unit which begins its movement in megahex without a basic in it is disrupted. It will be disrupted throughout that movement phase. Control and charge attacks. Since units which began their move in megahex without a basic in it are disrupted, it follows that they cannot make a charge attack that turn. Moving out of command control. Units may freely move out of command control range using their normal or charge movement as long as they began movement in control range. They may attack or charge attack normally at the end of their move. The disruption will take effect at the beginning of the next move if there is still no friendly basic in that megahex. Food value of dead units. This rule takes into account the fact that dead units are edible and that, in its search for food, a hive will not overlook them. Adding bodies to harvest chits. A list should be made at the beginning of each game of the harvest chits being used and their values. Whenever a unit is killed, add 1 to the value of the nearest harvest chit in the megahex. If more than 1 are equally close, determined by a die roll. Thus, the more combat takes place over a chit, the more valuable it will become. Starting new harvest chits. When a unit is killed and there is no harvest chit in the megahex, place 1 of the harvest chits without a number in the hex where that unit was killed, and add the letter of that chit to the list being kept. Thereafter, treat that harvest chit like any other harvest chit. Limit to chit value. No harvest chits may be worth more than 30 points. Instead of letting dead units increase a chit past 30 points, add new bodies to the next closest chit in the mega hex, or start a new chit in the same hex. Then we'll get to set up and play. Set up and play here. I'll be doing the small scenario. First of all, I'll roll to see who goes first, and I guess you can call the different hives whatever you want, but I'll call this Amber, Team Amber, and this is just White. White will be going first, And then Amber gets to choose the side they're coming on, and they'll be coming on this side. For the small scenario, harvest chits A, C, and F are placed on their locations. Each player selects 48 combat strength points of warriors and basics. Each player gets 6 workers. No more than 8 combat strength points of plunge units may be used. I'm doing this scenario because it uses all the advanced rules and advanced victory conditions, but yet it's fairly manageable. And I'm going to have them symmetrical as top of the units, although the groupings I'll change a little bit, I'll show you. So for the white, of course, here's the 6 workers, and then the amber, here's the 6 workers. Of the basics and combat units, which can only get up to 48, you can have no more than 8 combat strength points in plunge. So I have a group of 2 plunge here, which gives you 4, and then a grouping of 1, which is 2, so 6 there. And similarly on amber, a group of 2 and 1, so a total of 6. In the flanks, total of 12. I have 2 groupings of 2 here, and their combat strength points are 6 each, so a total of 12. And here I grouped them a little bit differently. Instead of having a group of 2 and 2, I have a group of 3 and 1. Low runners, on white I have a group of 2 and 1, so for a total of 6. Here, same, group of 2 and 1 for a total of 6. The Ganchuas, white I have and amber both, I have a group of 2 and 1 for a total of 12. Termagants, decided to both go there for a group of 3 termagants and 1 for each of those, so total of 8 there. And then I have 4 basics on each, so a total of 48 of the warrior units. So movement white on there. First I'll do the basics, because I got a control in the mega hexes. They have 5 movement points, and it's 1 across plain terrain, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so using that one. I'll be facing that direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so he's in this mega hex. 1, 2, 3, because it costs 2 movement points there. 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're each in a different mega hex. And then I'll move the flanks. And the stacking for them is you can only have 3 groupings of 3 in each, and there's 2 things of 2 here, so they can't stack together. It's got a movement of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And the Termagot, they have a group of 3 and a group of 1, so they can't stack together. So he's got a movement of 6. The Termagot's got a movement of 6, so he'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the Ganchuas, they have the benefit they can cross a river without costing 2. The others take 2, so he'll go up this side. He's got a movement of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're all facing going that way. And the low renders have the advantage they can cross rough terrain without paying 2 points. They only need 1. So I'll have them over here since this is rough terrain. 1, 2, 3, 4. And he needs to stay in this macro hex so that he doesn't lose command of him. And I'll have him go up here as well because it's rough. 1, 2, 3. He's got more movement, but he's got to stay there. And I'll move the worker units on. I want to keep them somewhat behind the others, but they'll have to stay also close in case the plunge come back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. They're going to stay in this area where it's kind of not a lot of rough terrain, so they can kind of shoot past there. And they can stack on top of each other because they only have one in a group there. And the plunge can each move 2 megahexes. So we go 1, 2, and he'll just go 1. And there's no disrupted units to turn up, and there's no combat. Then we go to Amber. Then Amber moves. Basics first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll have him go up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's the megahexes. And then I'll have all their facing. Tremicants. Movement of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Conchua. Again, they have the river advantage. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And I'll stack him with the basic because basics can stack with them. It's just other different types of warriors can't. Low renders have the advantage of going over rough terrain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He still has to pay the penalty though for rivers. Flanks. Put him up with a basic unit up here. Then the workers, I'll have them come in there as well. They can move 4. I'll have this one kind of go looking towards going to F here. And then I'll have the others go around here. 1, 2, 3. And he'll stack with his flanks. Have him stack with that. Now this worker stack with this worker. In the last one I'll have him stack with this Ganchua. Then the plunge. One over here. And then one up here. And no disrupted units, no combat. Then we'll move into the next turn. So White's movement. I find I like to move the basics first because then I kind of know where I need to be with everybody else. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this mega hex. I'll have this low render stay with him. Termagot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Low render. 1, 2, 3, 4. He can stack with a Termagot. For one thing, there's already 3 Termagots, and also he can stack different warriors with each other. And then I'll let this basic start moving up here if he can get there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. How this termagant. There's only one of them, so all of them stack with a basic. 1, 2, 3. This basic move up. 2, 3, 4, 5. Ganchwa. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I'll keep this basic back here so he's not overexposed. Yeah, the Ganch will go with him. Flanks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Worker. These workers. So they're all in this mega hex here. These units. So I'll move the basic up to this mega hex. 1, 2, 3, 5. I'll have him stack with his flanks. The workers will move up. I'll just Gantua stack with these workers. And this worker here. And then the plunge. One will go up here to support this basic. Another will go up here to support this group. No combat yet. Then we go to Amber. Yeah, I'll move the basics first again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll the low render go with him. 2, 3. He's not the same mega hex, but that's okay. He doesn't need to be controlled by the basic. And the Termagat, he has to be in the mega hex though. So you'll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slow render goes. It's gonna go over here to support these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This basic's gonna stay over here to, because that flanks can't get up there, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the flanks will go with him. Gantua. Workers can go with the Gantua. Actually, I'm not going to move this basic that far because nobody can really support him, so I'll keep him back here. Termagat. So I'm going to keep a lot of these guys just kind of grouped together because I don't want to have them too separated. This is a Ganch with a worker. I'll 1, 2, 3, 4. I can have this basic be over here instead, stay with them. In this mega hex. Then the plunge. We'll go here. And the other one will stay there. And no combat. So that's why it's time to move now. And as we get closer to combat here, one thing to keep track of is the quantities in the harvest chits. So as players lose units in macro hexes, those go to the harvest chit total, and you keep track of them here. I'll just keep it on a note card. So white will go. You don't have to move basics first, but that works best for me. I'm okay with where this one is, where this one is. Actually, I'll start moving this one up. Just macro hex, see how far you can get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's able to get in there. And let's see how close this one can get to that macro hex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'll move units. First of all, checking workers. I'd like them to get up to a harvest. I don't know if they can quite make it there though. So 4, he can make it there. He can make it. These can make it. So I'm going to send some up to, guard the harvest basically. I'll keep the termagant on the base there. I'll this Gancho move up. 1, 2, 3. So I'll have him guard the harvest. 1, 2. Move these workers up so they can get there next time. And you don't have to move all your units, I'm just moving the ones that make sense. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'll have him go up and protect this base. Cancer here with a worker. You can go 1, 2. You can go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's in sight of that one. Have some come up here to protect this base. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He can actually make it up to that harvest. Couple workers. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll render. You'll protect that basic. Actually, he's not going to go up there yet because he doesn't want to be overexposed. He doesn't. He's going to go up there. He's willing to get disrupted to protect that harvest because he's out of command range. Low render will protect the basic. 1. He does have to be an extra one for the river though. 2, 3, 4. And similarly 1, 2, 3, 4. And he'll protect. There's 2 workers there, so he can't stack his 2. He'll get one of the workers behind and then defend that one. And then the plunge. They're going to go up here. So he's in that macro hex. And then he'll come up to this macro hex. No combat yet. So the Ember this time, I'm going to move my basics first and also the workers to see where they can be. It doesn't look like any of them can reach the harvest yet because they can only move 4. And there's him. He can't reach it. He can't quite reach it. He can't reach it, but they'll move up. So he's gonna move his base up here, just to the edge of this mega hex. He's okay staying there. He's gonna move up to the edge of this mega hex. Then let's move the workers so they get a little bit closer. One, 2, 3. You'll be able to reach it next time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like they'll be able to reach it next time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So first of all, looking down here, these are going to have to go up to this. He's going to come protect the basic. Termagant. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lowrider. 1, 2, 3. He'll be moving up the flanks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ganchwa will go up here to protect this worker. He's protecting that worker. He's based there, so it's okay. And then I'm going to have this flanks come up here and protect this basic. And the Termagant, he can make it up here to combat this. This unit's disrupted from the white player since he was out of command control. So he's got 6, he can go 1, 2, 3, 4. And he needs 1 more since he's going in the zone of control, but he can still make that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's a Termagant against a Termagant. So some different classes of units, hackers, like Termagant's a hacker. It has no advantage against another hacker. So then the plunge, they're going to do some aerial warfare. Go up to this megahex, and also this one will come up to this megahex. So they have 3 plunges, and they have the option of doing some ground combat too, but I think they're just going to try to get air superiority. So some combat's going on, be a combat here and also up here. First we'll do the plunge. A total, they have 3 units, which is a total of 6 attack factors, combat factors. Actually against one that only has 1 unit, which has 2 combat factors, so it's a ratio of 3 to 1. So they go to the 3 to 1 column. Roll. 2. Defender loses 1, so that's sufficient to knock them out. At the end of the game, you keep track of how many enemy units have been lost, and the guy that loses units loses 2 victory points for each, so he'll just keep a stack of them that they're defeated. And also, since 1 unit was lost there, the value of that chit goes up 1. So now it's at 21. Then next combat, let's do the Termagant versus the disrupted Termagant. So first of all, noting that this Termagant group is disrupted, which means that for the 3 units they have, it's total combat strength of 3 instead of 6. And then you look at this chart, there's some adds of different classes, so smashers are better against hackers, etc. These are both hackers. Termagants are hackers, and they're not better against each other. So you just go to it's a 2 to 1 combat results. 6. 2 defenders are killed. The Termagant group is replaced by 1, and my understanding is it'll still be disrupted. And since a couple of units were lost in that battle, this is up at C now. He had a couple more harvest chits there. And you move a couple Termagants over here to indicate, so that'll help with the victory points at the end. And then we go down to this battle here between Termagant, Low Render, and a Ganchwa. We'll do this combat. 1 Termagant and 1 Low Render versus 2 Ganchwas. So the Ganchwa, he's a smasher. He does have an advantage. He's a class add versus a hacker, which the Termagant does, but he doesn't against a render. And since he doesn't combine attacks, so since he doesn't have one against both of them, he doesn't get that class add, and these don't have any class add against him. He could do a charge attack, which would double his combat, but then he reduces what he could do afterwards. So he's not going to do a charge attack, since he already has some advantage. So basically it's 8 versus 2 plus 2 or 4, so 2 to 1 ratio. 2. 2 to 1 ratio. Defender retreats. So the defender has to retreat 1 hex. Which is good, because the Gantz was able to defend this hex here. And that's all the battles for that time. So I'll just show a bit into the next turn here. So I have a bit of a challenge because I can move a worker there, but I can't, it's a termagant, so I can't move a different type of warrior there. So I'll just move the worker there. I'll move the low renders here. Another one here to do battle, and move a base here with a Gantua to support him. And now that the movement's complete, I can flip this termagant over, and now that workers with a termagant, it's not super great odds though, that's quite a heavy amount against them, but hopefully they'll win the battle and then capture their prize, the harvest. So we'll see how that goes. So the odds don't look super favorable. There's a total of 3 low renders versus a group of 3 flanks and a group of 3 termagants. So renders are good against thrusters, which flanks are, so they would get a 1 class for that, but they're also combating hackers, which they don't have an advantage against, so they don't get that advantage. So they're 4 plus 2, so 6 versus 9 plus 6, so it's 6 versus 15, approximately 1 to 3. 5. Attacker loses 1, and the harvest increases by 1 there as well. And the battle over here, so we have 3 termagants against her, well, 1 to 2. 5. Attacker retreats. So that wasn't successful, and they weren't able to get that harvest. So that's hopefully gives you a little sense of how it plays. So it's chitin, Harvest Wars. I think that's how you pronounce it, because chitin means exoskeleton material in insects. From 1977, from Metagaming, it's their micro game number 2. It's got a lot going on in a small package, and with all these small packages, it's usually good if it were bigger, but that's not how it was designed. But it's very creative. I do like the art a lot. It's very well done, kind of subtle and nice. Got a lot of complexity to it, a lot of strategy. Like how you different kinds of units, harvesting, and you have some ground units, some flying units. You have different terrain effects, and the combat is very quick. Just 1 die roll for each combat, which is nice. Very enjoyable. Looking forward to doing it again. I'll give that an 8 out of 10. Thanks a lot.